Hey there, it's Nina with Walla Stamping. Thanks for joining me today. This is the project that I'm going to be sharing with you. I really like how this little box turned out. When I first got the Eclectic Layers Thinlits, I wasn't quite sure about this shape right here. I really didn't know if I liked it or what I was going to end up doing with it. But yesterday as I was playing, this thought came to mind and I really do like how it turned out. So let me set some of these things aside and we'll get started with this project. Oh, let me show you what I have inside first. I made this with this little candle inside. Now, this is a, I don't know how many ounces of a candle it is, but the height of this candle is just barely over 3 inches, like 3 1/8. And then the dimensions across the top are about 2 3/4. So that's about the size of this jar. And if you have a TJ Maxx in your area, that is where those candles come from. But you know, I mean, TJ Maxx is not the only place where you can get a candle in a small jar like that. I've seen them at Target and Kroger's and different places like that, Walmart. So there are other places where you can get it. So let's set this to the side and I'll tell you everything you're going to need. Also, I have a kit. All you have to do is go over to my website at wallastamping.com, find the post for this project, leave a comment, and your name will be entered to win this kit. So what I've done here is I've started out with a couple of pieces of basic black cardstock, and I've cut one of them, which they're pretty close to the same size. One of them is 9 3/8 inches by 6, and the second is 8 7/8 inches by 6. Then I also have a piece of lemon lime twist, and this is cut to 2 1/2 inches by 10. I have a piece of whisper white that is 3 1/2 by 3 1/4, and a piece of berry burst that's 2 1/2 by 5. So what we're going to do first is grab our Simply Scored scoring tool, and I'm going to take the larger of the two and put that in landscape mode where the 9 3/8 is across the top. I'm going to start by scoring at 2 3/4, then at 6 1/8, and at 8 7/8. Oops, I almost scored on the wrong line. Okay, then I'm going to turn it to the left 1/4 of a turn, and I'm going to score at 2 3/4 and at 5 1/2. All right, then we're going to grab the smaller piece of the basic black, and we're going to score at 2 3/4 and 6 1/8. Turn it to the left 1/4 turn, score at 2 3/4 and at 5 1/2. All right. All right. Now, let me explain why I'm making this box with 2 separate pieces of paper, because in order to do this cutout, it has to run through the Big Shot. And if I did all of this in one solid sheet, it's not going to fit through the Big Shot in such a way that you can cut this out without messing up another portion of your box. So that's why I've designed it to be cut out or to be assembled in 2 different pieces instead of just one. So let's go ahead, and how you can tell the difference in which one of these is going to be the portion that has the lid that folds over is one of them, of course, is a little bigger than the other and has this extra 1/2 inch score mark. So this piece here is going to end up being the portion that will be the front of your box, and then these 2 will be a side and a back. So let's go ahead and grab our scissors and do our trimming. So what you're going to do here is this little rectangle and this little rectangle and square, we're going to cut those away, and then cut this out at a little bit of an angle. This will be the little tab that holds the box together. Okay, this is going to end up being the bottom of your box. So we're going to cut straight up this score line, and then this little tab here, we're going to cut just a little bit away. I mean, just a little bitty piece. It doesn't have to be much. And I'm doing this because I'm keeping all of these flaps, and I want the side pieces to be a little bit smaller so that my box will fold up nice and neat. Now let's turn it around to this side and cut straight up this score line here. And then we don't need this little small rectangle, so we're going to cut it away. And then just like on the other side, I'm going to cut a little wedge out of this side and this side of this tab. My sweet little Sugar is in here with me, and she's actually laying right on top of my feet, keeping them warm. I'm glad, because there's a vent in my room that blows right on my feet when I'm standing here, and if I'm barefoot, my feet get cold. So my little sweet Sugar is keeping my feet warm. Isn't that cute? Okay, so this piece is going to end up being a side and the back. So just like on the first one, we're going to cut straight up these score lines here and cut these little pieces out and leave our little tab for putting our box together. Then on this one, we're going to cut straight up this score line here. We're going to wedge out a little piece here and here. Then we're going to flip it around to the other side, and we're going to cut straight up this score line and then get rid of this square right here. Then I'm just going to cut just a little bitty small amount off each side of this piece that's remaining. Now, this is how your box will go together. So this will be the front and a side. You'll attach them together like this. So this will be the side, and this will end up being the back of your box. So I'm going to grab my 1/2 inch circle punch, and I'm going to go ahead and punch out a little finger hole to make this box easier to open. So since this is going to be the front, let me move this out of the way and keep this here for now. And what did I do with, there we go. So now the ink that I'm using is Lemon Lime Twist and Berry Burst, and I have a couple of sponges that I'm going to be using also. So I'm going to start out with my Berry Burst, and I'm going to do just a little bit of sponging, and you can do it however you want to. I just like intermingling these colors. So I'm going to come down here kind of at an angle and just color this in, and then I will be adding some of the green as well. So I'm going to fast forward and let you watch me color, but this does take just a couple of minutes, and I do want this video not to be too awful long. Now I've got the front portion and the side portion of my box in my Big Shot with the magnetic platform and one acrylic plate. I'm going to take my Eclectic Layers Thinlits and take this one right here, and this portion that has the little tab will end up being the front of my box. So what I'm going to do is just lay this kind of catty-cornered across my paper here, and see where these little dots are running right here. What I'm trying to do is align these with this score line. That way I'll know that when I fold my box over, that will be a line. Let me turn it back over. This little portion of this shape will be on that fold line, which will make your box look a little neater and tidier. So I'm just kind of eyeballing it, but getting that lined up. Now I'm going to put my other acrylic plate on top and run that through my Big Shot. And here's what you'll have once you get that ran through. Now, while I have the Big Shot out, I think I'll go ahead and do the rest of my stamping and my die cutting. I'm going to be using this stamp set, which actually coordinates with this framelit set. So these two go together, and I'm going to be stamping this flower and this leaf. So I've got my flower mounted here, and I'm going to use the Berry Burst, and you'll need 2 of these stamped. So I'm just going to stamp them one beside the other. Then I'm going to grab my Lemon Lime Twist. I got ink on me. Let me get that cleaned up real quick. Just have a little alcohol there. Get that off my finger so I don't transfer that to my other paper. All right, and then I've got this little stamp, and I'm going to stamp just 2 of these in the Lemon Lime Twist. Oops, I'm off camera, sorry. So there's 1, there's 2. So I'm just going to stamp 2, but I am going to cut out a total of 6 of these framelits here. So you'll cut out 6 of these, but you only need to stamp 2 of them because we're going to be layering them. So you'll just lay that down and get it lined up over the top of your stamped image. Then I will go ahead and cut out the flower while I'm out at it, which is this one right here. Get that lined up around your flower. I've got it backwards. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to get all of these cut out. So what I have here, I cut out a total of 6 of these leaves. These I've already got adhered together, and I'm going to put these together. Now what I do is I'm just using my multi-purpose liquid glue, and I'm going to come in here and just put a dot of glue on each of these leaves like this. Then I'm going to take my stamped image and lay that on top, getting everything lined up. Then I'll do that a second time. And the reason I'm doing this is because these are going to be sticking up off the edge of the box, and I want them to be a little more substantial and be able to stand up to some wear and tear. So that's why I'm doing that way. Now for the flower, I'm going to bring my scissors in on one of these, and I'm going to find areas that look to me like they would naturally have petals that separate. So one of those for me is right here. So I'm just going to follow that stamped line and cut that around just like that. Then I'm going to come over here and do that again right in this area. And then maybe again right here. Okay, so then I end up having basically 3 petals. Now I do have kind of a little sharp tip right there. I'm just going to snip that off. I'm just going to place this flower in the palm of my hand and use my bone folder. You can use either end, and I'm just going to go in there and press that around in the palm of my hand to make these curl up the way that a natural flower probably would. So I've got that going on. Then I'm going to take the bone folder and I'm going to come around the edges of each of these little petals that I cut out and separated, and I'm going to curl those back down. Just do each one of those individually. And if using your bone folder in the palm of your hand doesn't really work as well as you'd like it to, then you could take the end of a pen or something that's a little more rounded like this and go in there and work that around a little bit to give that petal a little more of a natural curve like a flower. Now to put these two together, I'm just going to use my mini glue dots. You could also use your liquid multi-purpose glue for this as well. I'm just going to use a glue dot, and I put my flower together so that the petals don't match up exactly the way they're stamped on both of them. I'm just going to put this down like that so that the other flower will kind of peek through from the back. Then I'm going to take one of my gold faceted gems, and I'm going to get one of these medium-sized ones here. Get that pulled off, and I'm going to place that right in the center of that flower. Then, let's move these out of the way. I'm going to start assembling my box. First of all, I'm going to take this piece of paper that I did the sponging on, and I'm going to put it on the back side just like this, okay? Let's flip that over so you can see how that's going to look. Again, I'm going to use my multi-purpose liquid glue, and I'm just going to come into the center of where all of these shapes intersect, and I'm just going to put a dot of glue on each one of those. Then I'm going to put glue all in these little areas too, where they curve in and meet. And then if you want to take the time, you can also go ahead and add glue in all of these little areas too. All right, now that I've got my glue all put in place, I'm going to take my piece of paper and lay that down. Get it pressed into place. I'm going to grab a ruler, and I'm going to grab my bone folder. If you have a stylus, you can use that. I'm going to line up my ruler with where this score line is that I had made previously. And I'm just going to take my bone folder and just go down through there and make sure that I get this whisper white scored really well too. And I'm going to give that a little fold and give that a good little crisp edge with my bone folder. And there you go. If a little bit of glue comes out around there, I wouldn't worry about it too much because the glue will dry clear. Alright, so I'm going to use my fast fuse adhesive, and I'm going to run a strip here and a strip here. I'm first going to put this piece on top here. What you'll want to do is line up your vertical score lines, or your horizontal score lines, excuse me, and then line up that cut edge of your paper just barely to the right hand side of where that score line is. You don't want to put it over the top of it so that you cannot see where that score line is. Otherwise, your box is not going to be shaped correctly and it's not going to fold up nice for you. Then just take this one, fold it over, and get that pressed down. So before I go any further, I'm going to grab my rhinestones, and I'm going to use the smallest ones. And what I'm going to do is put one, I'm even going to put one there. It may not stay well because it is right there on the corner, but we'll put one there anyway. Alright, so I've got that done, and I've got rhinestones flying everywhere. Let me get those picked up. I'm going to grab my glue dots now, and on these little leaves, I really don't need those stems, so I'm just going to trim those off. Okay, so I'm going to use my glue dots. And if you look back at this box, which my lid just popped open, they kind of hang over the edge a little bit. So I'm going to begin by turning this over and putting some of my glue dots on these lower leaves. Then I'll put one here. Nope, it won't let go of me. And then I'll probably put one right about there. Then I'm going to take this and lay it on my box so that it does overhang a little bit. Go ahead and flip this one over and do the same thing. Then I'll place this one on there, going more straight up. We're going to put the flower right about there, and because these are so thick, I'm going to be using dimensionals to stick my flower on. What I'm going to do is, I know that this is the portion that has to be raised. So I'm going to use actually a couple of dimensionals on top of each other here to make sure that I have enough lift. So I'll put two on that side. And then over here on the other side, I'm just going to use a couple of glue dots because it only needs to be raised on this side where it's sticking to the box. I just use this and go in there and press that down underneath that layer. And then again, as before, if you want more lift from your flower, just go in and work on it a little bit and get it to look like you want it to. Okay, so this is going to be the front flap and this is a side flap. I'm going to fold both of those up and I'm going to just use my liquid glue. Just run a little bit there and a little bit there. Open my box. So I'm going to fold that side flap in first and then the second one. Do the back flap in and then the front one. And then make sure that my box is good and square. Push that down on the inside. Now, those two fold over, and what I would like to do now is, and I should have done this before, was snip off these two edges so that that will tuck down inside your box easily. So there we go. There are both of your boxes. This is really a fun, kind of a modern, well, I've got a very eclectic personality, and this is definitely a very eclectic box. You got a traditional flower with non-traditional colors and a non-traditional pattern cut out. But I like it. That's just my personality, and I hope you like it too. So remember to go over to my blog at wallastamping.com. There is an instruction sheet over there with all of the measurements and instructions on how to create this, and there is also a supply list of everything that I use. If you have any questions, be sure to send me an email. It's nina@wallastamping.com, and I would love for you to subscribe to my channel as well as my newsletter. So you guys have an awesome, fantastic day, and I'll talk to you soon.